So good evening, everyone. Welcome to our 30th town hall, teletown hall, the Life in the Time of COVID series. This is our third or fourth one with Palm Beach School District or related to Palm Beach School District. We're happy to have with us tonight Superintendent Dr. Donald Fennoy, who's going to be discussing with us the school reopening plan and how we're going to deal with COVID in the fall. Thank you for everyone who was able to attend this teletown hall live. If not, it is of course being recorded and it will be sent to all of our members in our bargaining unit. And if you receive the video of this town hall and you have a question that you did not get a chance to ask live, feel free to respond to the email or text that you receive the video link in, ask the question, and we will get the question answered. So with that, we're going to dig into the town hall. Let me start off by introducing Dr. Donald Fennoy. Dr. Donald E. Fennoy II is the 26th superintendent of the A-rated school district of Palm Beach County. Prior to his appointment as superintendent of schools, Dr. Fennoy served as the district's chief operating officer from May 2016 to March 2018. He is credited with significantly improving operational efficiencies across the 9 departments within his division. Following the transportation situation in 2015, before coming to Palm Beach County, Dr. Fennoy served as the senior area superintendent of the South Learning Community for the Fulton County School District. Dr. Fennoy graduated from Florida A&M University with a degree in elementary education. He went on to earn a master's degree in educational leadership and a doctorate in educational leadership and administration from the University of Central Florida. So Dr. Fennoy, thank you for joining us tonight. You are the man of the hour from the standpoint. You have all the answers to the questions about how we're going to deal with this thing in the fall. So,
yes, sir.
What's the plan? How are we going to reopen? You have the floor.
Well, first of all, let me thank you and your entire team, not just for inviting me to this town hall the second time I've been here, but also just, other conversations and supports as we've been trying to figure this thing out. I think, to continue on with the joke, nobody has the real answer how we're going to fix all of this because it's changing every day. But what I do want to go through with the membership, if you don't mind, is just kind of our process. And so when we went out on March 13th, I'll be honest, none of us really expected for us to be out for the rest of the year. We just kind of thought we would have this pause. And then obviously we all realized rather quickly what was happening. I instructed the academic team to start building out our distance learning platform forever. And I just want to share you my rationale. It wasn't for this, what we're dealing with now, even though this is what I consider worst case scenario. Honestly, I thought about, we suspend kids from schools and then parents have to go back and try to find assignments. I was like, hey, if we do this right, you just tell a kid, go log on. So so that's what we did. And so we were able to do a lot of work during the summer. We created a project plan. I also wanted to try to make some of our final so-called decisions as close to the opening of school as possible, but with enough time to give all of us, your union, a membership, the CTA, and just staff, I figured in 5 or 6 weeks we could get something in place. And we stuck to those timelines. So obviously, if you haven't heard, we had the longest meeting in Palm Beach County school history a couple of weeks ago, which ultimately led us to the approval of the plan to start in distance learning. Now, even prior to that, there were conversations, obviously, with your membership around how can we keep, the desire of myself and the board was, it's nobody's fault that we're here. And so we were trying our best not to hurt as few people as possible. And so my hope is that with the process that we moved up to today, we have now, the board has asked us to consider pushing the start time back. We did that. But in that conversation, and I want to thank you so much to helping us get to that calendar and then come to some agreements as to how we would continue to maintain the membership. But I will say this, now that those big decision points are made, the devils are in the details now. And that's what we have to work on for the next month of the details. Many of the questions that were provided that I saw firsthand, and I'm sure will come today, I'm gonna tell you right now, I don't have answers for all of them. However, what we don't have answers for, I will commit to recording them with your leadership, and we will get those answers back to you as soon as they are done. We will answer the questions that we can. As I understand it, some of my team members are on. In particular, I'm looking for Mike Burke, our Chief Finance Officer, if he's on, so he can really get into some of the questions that I may not be able to answer fully. But I want to say this. I hope that everyone of the membership is taking care of themselves, first of all, and your families. And we hear you loud and clear, as it relates to the anxiety and fear about what we have to try to experience. But I also want to make sure that we try to be as humane as possible in this entire process. I think some of the challenges for us collectively is how do we create great working conditions to do things outside of your normal job description, considering some of you won't be able to do those things moving forward until such a time. I also want to just say part of our rationale, we're trying to avoid the worst case scenarios for as long as humanly possible. And I will commit to you that we will be having, if we find ourselves in those situations after the election, that we will be having those conversations with your membership way prior to decisions being.
Hello? I think Dr. Fennoy just froze for a second. This is our second town hall this week, and the last one was with Congresswoman Val Demings, and so she was actually in Congress in a session and stepped out to do the call, and she got disconnected several times. So we have been saying that, FPSU is nothing but not resilient in our ability to adapt to situations as they occur.
Okay.
So we're going to roll with the punches, and here he's back.
Okay.
So pick up your sentence. Where were you?
Was that me, or was did I log out?
We're going to blame you for it even if it wasn't, but just go ahead.
Yeah, but like I said, thank you, Alfonso. But like I said, we know there's still a lot of questions and a lot of safety things to figure out so that you can do your jobs. I think what's been clear from the membership is that you want to be a full participant and you want to do your jobs, but you want to be safe just like everybody else. And so I hear that loud and clear, and I'm committed to that to the best of our ability. And so I think there's still a lot of research to do with augmenting, buses and some of the other working conditions. We have to, create metrics to make sure that when we start getting back into the building, even with the small number of people that go back in the beginning, we have to just keep an eye on everything and make sure that information is transparent, that we're letting people know. I have a meeting next week, and I will follow back up with the membership, with the county around trying to figure out a way to get testing at our schools or some of our ancillary facilities so that our people can get testing quicker. And again, these are all pie in the sky ideas. As you know, in the regular world, it's taking up to 10 days to get test results back. So my hope is once they figure all of that out, that we can try to bring some of those resources closer to the organization so that people will have it on hand if necessary. Because if we don't really know where people's status is, for a better lack of words, it's going to be very hard to mitigate a lot of the results of that. So we have a million committees working through that. And so your group of people have not been lost in this conversation. We're constantly thinking about every group. We're communicating with your leadership as much as humanly possible. Anytime they call me, we're answering the phone. Our board, if you haven't paid attention to board meetings, they understand the situation as it relates to this membership as well. So I hope you understand that the board too is trying their best to make the best accommodations for everybody. But we got a long road ahead of us. I think as I've come to realize, things change on us every day. Matter of fact, the week of our presentation of the plan, you get, and I want to say this too, because you're going to get it as well as bus drivers and mechanics and custodians and whatever your job description is. We're not going to be able to make everybody happy. Some of y'all, we're going to give you all of the tools we can and regulations around cleaning, and people are going to accuse you of not cleaning. And we have to understand that our job right now isn't to make everybody happy. It's to try to do what's best with the information that we have and make the best decisions to keep everyone safe and sound, but also to get us ready to go back. Because one of my biggest fears is when we start to push back in, I really would like to shut schools down regularly. That disruption could be a challenge for us, and it may be unavoidable, but I sure would like to shoot for that. There's another big thing that I want to be transparent about. Once we get to the election, there's a strong possibility that the governor could come back and say that we have to adjust our budgets. And so I'm just saying all of this. I don't know what the answers are to that yet. We don't even know if that's really going to happen. Some of us were speculating it was going to happen this summer. It did not, thankfully. So that gets us, and Mr. Burke, if he's on, he can speak more to this, but the way we feel right now based on the governor's orders, we really feel confident based on what we read recently that we can maintain our workforce this next semester. And that's how we're moving forward if you haven't realized that as of yet. But that's really all I have in terms of the introduction. I just want to set the conditions that we will answer whatever questions that you have. This will not be the last time you see us. I would argue once we get into August, the first 2 weeks of August, I need our entire team working on getting things right. But I want to go ahead and get the next town hall scheduled so that I can make sure that you have the most up-to-date information from me and whoever else you need to hear from. Thank you, Mr. Mayfield.
Thank you. We're one step ahead of you already, trying to put dates together for the next one.
Okay.
So,
right.
So what we're going to do next, we're very happy to have several of our members to actually ask a series of questions. Then we're going to go to the count of questions we got at large. I do want to say just to everybody, we represent 5 school districts in Florida and a bunch, and we also represent 7 colleges and universities in Florida too, with adjuncts and non-instructional. This is it's definitely one of the weirdest times since I've been in Florida for 12 years and in my 20 plus years of being in labor and politics. I think that the thing that we're looking for, and I will commend you and your staff, when this initially happened, you guys reached out, we've had ongoing dialogues. Problems are going to come up. We're going to have to deal with them. We want to do what's in the best interest of the kids and families. We want to make sure that we keep our members safe and try to keep them whole. But it's going to take us in constant communication to be able to do so. But we're in unprecedented, uncharted waters. And so we're going to have to put our heads together to probably figure out some unprecedented, uncharted solutions to make sure that we do that. You have that commitment from us, and and our members feel the same way. We want to make this happen the best way that we can. And so with that, we're going to go to the woman that spoke truth to power to Joe Biden. That is Rhonda Miller, who's the chapter chair for transportation. Rhonda, you there?
Good evening. I'm here. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Dr. Fennoy.
Good evening.
Yes. Being a bus driver, my concern is for the school buses and its closed environment. Mm-hmm. It increases the chances of spreading the virus and putting our students, drivers, and attendants at a high risk. What manner of protection will be provided to us to prevent this spread? And what new protocols have been put and developed for our safety?
So this is a conversation. We're a member of the Council of Great City Schools. Matter of fact, Mr. Mayfield and I had a brief conversation about this yesterday. So right now we know what the CDC has said. All the so-called social distancing on the buses. We know we know there's going to be masks on buses mandatory. We know that we provide face shields, et cetera, et cetera. But I still think there's a lot of details to be worked out. I've been hearing, I want to say one of your members spoke at a board meeting and made a comment in reference to some sort of plastic plexi shield that could go around drivers. So I haven't seen commercially where we can get that. I don't know if that's something people are building. So we're looking into every possibility as we speak. But as of right now, what we know for sure is social distancing, masks, face shields. And now the protocols are what now we need to figure out. Like there are people who are asking me to have bus drivers take temperatures before kids get on buses. I don't know how practical that is. And so we have to really work through a lot of that. I think in the early stages, obviously, we're going to start virtually. So that gives us at least until August 31st in order to start developing things and working with you. I also would suggest that some of this is going to be happening in real time. So I think we're going to do everything we can on the front end. I also know that we purchased all these Clorox electrostatic machines that go on to clean between buses. They started those protocols, making sure doing every route after every route that is done. So we're going to keep doing that. But I think it's important to hear from the bus drivers and attendants some of your ideas as well. Because I think at this point, we're kind of open to anything. And I think the people who actually hum the bus will probably know a lot more than somebody like me sitting in my office. So we're going to be doing our research, and I know the teams are working on that now. But I think we have a window of opportunity to also hear from you about some of the things that we could consider. But let me say this, I make no promises. Everything's costing money, and we're trying to figure all this out. But the exploration and at least listening, we will absolutely do.
Thank you. And just on the Shields thing, I think I mentioned you when we talked before. So we represent some public transportation that is not school district, and they have the encasings on those buses, but they also have front and rear entry and exit. So we're going to reach out to PSTA, Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority, and ask them what did they do, how did they do that, who did they contract with, and we'll get you the information. At least as a starting point is one.
Thank you.
So next on our questions list, we have Lehman Fields, who's a custodian. Lehman?
Hello, everyone. Hello, Dr. Fennoy.
Hey, sir, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Yourself?
Hey, we here. I'm talking to you, so we good.
All right. So my question for you is about student safety. But first, I would like to say, with me being back at work, I'd like to say thank you for supplying the custodial staff with masks, the disposable masks, the new cloth washable masks, and everything that we need so far to do our job.
Okay.
So with that out of the way, my question is, how will the district practice social distancing for students that attend schools in which the classroom set up for K through first grade, the students sit at tables,
Yeah.
and second through fifth grade, the students share double desks?
Yeah, so we definitely have done a lot of research on that. The great news is that the operations team, led by Wanda Paul, so we've gone out to the schools with some of the custodians actually and started measuring classrooms, taping stuff off. You know, we're also, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we're getting ready for hurricanes. So we've been out there getting our shelters ready. So we started that measurement. The way the plan sits today, whenever we open back schools, now again, that's not until the county moves into phase 2. So we will start in virtual, but when we move to phase 2 and we begin to bring back those groups that you talked about, there's a couple of things that we're looking at. First of all, it'll be volunteer only. So every kid won't be coming back. It'll be only be those families that choose to come back. And so we're currently on Monday, we're going to be sending out information to families to ask who's going to be willing to bring their kids back once that first phase occurs. So then we should have some numbers or data to know how many actually kids are coming, and then we can govern ourselves accordingly. I think the other thing specifically to those tables and desks, there's a product on the market now that similar to what we discussed for the bus drivers, where you can put this sort of plastic partition on desks and tables to keep the kids separated. They can be washed every day because it's that plexiglass. So we are currently investigating buying that for all the district. Now and you may know this, we've already installed and putting plexiglass in the front offices around the district. So we're moving fast and furious to get all of our schools done and all of our ancillary facilities. But right now, those are some of the basic plans that we're thinking about, is we will adhere to the social distancing guidelines. And let's be clear, the CDC keeps changing the guidelines. I've heard it could be 3 feet apart, 6 feet apart. So right now we're working on the 6 feet apart, and then we'll have to kind of back it out from there. Look at our auditoriums, cafeterias, other large spaces, media centers to separate kids. But that is part of our rationale for moving kids in small groups, meaning kindergarten, first and second, 6 and 9. So we can look at it. You bring that group in and we look and see how it works with the kids and the adults, and then we make adjustments based on that. And then as we start to roll more and more kids in, we should be more comfortable with dealing with it, right? But right now, specific to your question, is just buying all the things that are out there that we know that can work, and then trying to work with the protocols. Don't be surprised if people like yourself and others, we need to ask some of y'all like what we need to do. I think don't be surprised if principals start reaching out to their head custodians and custodians in general just to ask, like, how should we be looking at some of this stuff? Because you guys probably know traffic flow better than some of the other people in the building. and how these things work and how and where can you think about it? My children are 4 and 11. You know, I'm just trying to imagine how you really keep kindergartners and first graders from, I'm seriously, I ain't trying to be funny, but it's serious. We got to think about that and how we keep that space, because babies want that attention. They want a high five when they see you in the hallway. That's what babies do, So we have a lot to train people on. And I think that's the last piece I say to this. We're working on a lot of training for parents, faculty and staff, teachers, and children about what the new reality will look like. So that's what the good news is the board gave us some more time to start working on all of this. But I'm telling you, any ideas that y'all may have, get it to the membership and they will get it to us. And I promise you, we will consider those things.
Okay, thanks, Lehman. Next, we have a question by Alondria Bell, who works in food service. Alondria, are you there?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Dr. Fennoy.
Good evening.
My question is basically it's more of a concern with safety, with different vendors coming in and out. That was one of the questions and concerns that me and my staff had when dealing with working the past couple of months before school was out, when everything first happened. And I didn't work over the summer, but I am a manager. And we have to have different vendors coming in during the week, every week, Cisco, produce, and then we have the food banks coming in with the volunteers, and they're outside. But just in that whole thing, the concern is them coming in, some wearing masks, some not wearing masks. People are just really, really concerned about the safety of, dealing with outside vendors, and then, on the bus loop with the passing out the food and everything to the different families and stuff like that.
Yes, ma'am. So, well, I share that concern. I think, obviously at the beginning, we were all just moving. So I think now we're in a position where, we just talked to the team the other day. So we're going to start creating a lot of signage, like you're seeing out in the private world. Signs on the floor, signs on doors. And I think what we can do, I'm glad you brought this up. I'll bring it up with the chief operating officer and all the directors as we talk about all of our vendors and putting some protocols that they can't come on our campus without masks. I think we should even probably consider, to the best of our ability, they should be able to have access to hand sanitizer or a place to wash their hands before they come into the facility. So I don't think that's an unreasonable request. And I think since there are facilities, we can sort of demand those things. So I'll put that on our list to consider and for my team to talk through. Thank you.
Thanks, Alondria. So next we have paraprofessional Nalini Singh. You there, Nalini?
Are you hearing me now, Alfonso?
I am. And Superintendent, you need to be prepared. Nalini's tough now. Don't let the sophomore see you. She's tough. So go ahead.
Good evening. Good evening, Dr. Fennoy and everyone on board. I am a paraprofessional and I work with ESE students at Royal Palm School. Mm-hmm. My question actually has two parts to it. One of it is, would you require, or would the district require ESE students to wear masks while on campus? And the other part is, how will paraprofessionals assist in virtual classes?
So the second question, I can't answer that right now. We are actually working on that in real time. So we'll get that answer back to you. But the first one is actually a hard question. I mean, Alfonso's right. Especially with children with special needs and in the school that you actually work at, and God bless all of you because you guys do heroes work. I think some of that is going to be dependent on IEPs, obviously, and what the child can physically handle in that environment. What we have done already, though, is the level of PPE and personal protective equipment that will be in your facility will be far beyond what other people will see. I mean, we purchased, you know, the gowns just like you would see in the emergency rooms, considering just how hands-on your work is. Obviously with diaper changes, feeding, intubation, et cetera. I can go on and on and on. So right now the board and I are strongly considering making masks a mandatory part of schools, but obviously you have to create opportunities for those who cannot do that. You know, people like, I have asthma and stuff like that. So you got to figure out ways for people to get breaks from those masks or have other alternatives. But to your second question, again, we're working on that. In some instances, we've used pairs to help with some of the telehealth and some of those pieces. We are still doing home visits in some cases. But again, right now, we've made all that basically voluntary for staff. We have not forced people to do those things as of yet. And let me be clear about that, because in the future, we all may not have a choice. But that's what we are. We understand that you have all these talented people that we could actually use. So we're trying to figure out a way to make sure that we can have you part of the team on this work.
Thank you, Nalini. So the next part of our agenda, we received questions ahead of time from our membership. We got a couple hundred questions. We're not going to go through a couple of hundred questions, but there's some common themes. So that some of them may be redundant, but that's good. So the first question I got actually just got texted to me, but it's a question that's related. So if we're going back August 31st, and I think it's specific for transportation, are drivers and bus attendants or some form of drivers going to go back in any way earlier to help prepare to get ready to move buses on the 31st of August?
Yeah, so as I understand it, there's still the in-service days that is still part of your contract that we would adhere to. And then we again, I think part of the joint conversation are all those alternative things that you can do to help us get back to school. You know, so to your point, one of the earlier questions, we're going to be reconfiguring every school in the district, moving all kinds of equipment. We've already, I can tell you this, you know, bus drivers will be used to deliver stuff, meaning computers and things like that to kids who we haven't been able to reach. So we just ordered 100,000 machines. We know every family is not going to be able to pick them up. So we're going to need assistance to deliver that stuff. So again, I don't want to get into all of this because we need to work it out collectively. And I know the team is working on it. Both teams have been thinking through this. But yeah, so we're going to try to make sure people are working as long as possible. But we also realize that the working conditions matter. And so we need to talk through that piece.
Okay, great. Thank you. So next question. Will the non-instructional employees still be able to get paid? How will you guys ensure that the schools will be clean and safe to come back to?
Well, the non-instructional employees, can you be a little more clear on which ones? Because it would.
All our folks are non-instructional, so this is more of a broad blanket question, right? So everybody but teachers is essentially what they're saying.
Yeah, well, at least I know many of the members here will continue to get paid. I think I actually saw one of your earlier questions around, like when we went out, the check was lower, something like that. I remember the question, but we do this smooth pay thing. But again, I think at this point, y'all, just keeping you get a check is just a big deal. It's a really, really big deal. And we'll keep working through that. I think the other part, what was the other part of the question? I'm sorry.
How will you guys ensure that the schools will be clean and safe to come back to?
Yeah, so a couple of things, you know, as the gentleman stated earlier, that the custodial crew's they've been working forever. I mean, we've never not really had them working except for a very short period of time. So we have increased everything. We purchased all the new equipment. We have purchased those things. Training has been ongoing. We've even increased the level of bought more, I guess, stronger chemicals, you know, whatever the new recommendations of the chemical levels associated with that. I know we've done that. Warehouses of soap and towels and you name it, we have all of that. But more importantly, protocols. Because the other part of this is, I think once we get back in brick and mortar, the cleanliness of the building will not just rest on the shoulders of the custodian. I believe, like, between classes, you know, I would even argue setting up wipes in classes and kids wipe down their own desk between class. I mean, there's a lot. I think we're all going to have to be a part of this, y'all. This isn't going to be just resting on the, you know, the custodians in that building. And so
Say that again.
Excuse me?
Say that again.
Well, it's the truth. Like, it's you know, think about a large high school. It'd be impossible to do that. But we're working on those protocols, and it's going to be a team effort. Obviously, you know, you guys will take the lead, but we have to just make sure that we have all the equipment, like I said, we know the protocols, and so far so good. They've done. And then lastly, I would say this: if we have an outbreak, we have we can bring in specialty units to do like this deep cleaning overnight in those worst case scenarios.
Yeah. So the next question is, will there be furloughs? If so, when will employees be informed? If not, will employees be paid if schools do not reopen?
So today there are no furloughs, but it is always a possibility depending on the financial situation. Again, and when will you be notified? I think I committed to that earlier. You know, I believe, I think people like Mr. Mayfield, who's much more in the political arena than I am, once we get to the election, there's gonna be a lot of stuff coming out to respond to the economic realities of COVID as well. And so I'm not gonna sit here and take, furloughs are an option for all of us, myself included, to be frank with you. And so we'll see where that goes. But I don't wanna give any false hope that it's gonna be this pretty the whole time.
Yeah, right. So what's going to happen to drivers if we go back to virtual learning?
Well, as of right now, we're gonna be figuring out ways to keep you employed and keep you working. That's the short answer that I can answer. But I guess part of our rationale too is, you know, if I don't have to let you go, I don't want to, because if we come back in January, how am I gonna find everybody? So, you know, there's some strategy to this as well, y'all. You know, I mean, we love you to death, but we also need you around, because I need my 2 children. At some point, they got to get back in that building. I'm telling y'all that.
I agree. So you answered part of this question, so I'm gonna go to the second part that you didn't. So this is specific for paraprofessionals, but it's if there are furloughs or potentially layoffs, how does that impact medical coverage and premiums? COBRA is unaffordable, or will we be cross-trained or repurposed for work online, et cetera? And this was specifically in the frame of paraprofessional.
Yeah, so let me bring that one back. I don't want to misspeak on that, because that's one of them categories. When I think of furloughs doesn't mean you lost your job. So technically, you should have kept your medical insurance. I get confused a little time with the non-instructional. So basically, I know most people who are furloughed keep their medical coverage. And so I'll leave that there, but I can get back specifically to the pairs. I can put that on my list to bring that information back to you.
Yeah. Let me throw something in too, just so that people get. So one big thing that we haven't talked about in this conversation at all, but it is very important, is that, you know, the Senate is presenting their next stimulus plan this week. The House passed the plan somewhere in May, and so there's going to be, something's going to get passed and it's going to get conferenced. One component of this plan, I know that for our side, what we've been lobbying for is that to fill in some of the gaps for public institutions to be able to save jobs, promote safety, to be able to help the unemployed, to be able to deal with medical coverage and medical issues, all of that. So kind of the thing that we don't know to fit into this context is how that bill coming out of Congress is going to impact public sector broadly, but school districts specifically, right? Because there may be some interplay that we don't know. I don't know, you know what Mike thinks about that, or your GR team, but we did a briefing several weeks ago where we talked about this in detail. So that's going to have some impact on what we do too, because those dollars will be prescriptive in some ways.
Well, and I mean, honestly, it can really only help us. I mean, you know, any additional funding, well, idealistically, it can help us, depending on how, like you said, how categorical it is. If it's not tied specifically to certain things, then we can find out, we can create flexibilities. But yeah, I'm interested to see how this comes out of the Senate as well.
Okay. If an employee gets sick, will the district pay employees while they're out? And do the districts pay hazard pay to employees due to COVID-19?
Hazard pay, I know, is not on the table at all. The first question, typically, if you have your time, you would just use whatever time that you have. Those rules are not suspended. You know, we were all being as flexible as we could during the first part of COVID. And so as of right now, and again, we're still being very flexible with people right now, but there comes a point that we're going to have to use the sick time that we've all been given if those things occur.
So let me give you a CARES Act follow-up question, because this goes back to the first stimulus. So part of what was in the first CARES Act, and the FIFA can weigh in if I'm getting this wrong, was that if someone tested positive, they would get 14 days paid, right? But not for a second occurrence.
Yes.
So the question that I also have is, how does that extend? Does that continue on through the rest of the year, or was that also sunsetted like the UEI benefits, and is that part of the second stimulus as well?
I would definitely have Mike and them, they actually have that written down, so I will actually have that. If he's not on, I will definitely bring that one back to you. I know we have that answer.
And our team may have part of that question too, I just don't know it.
Okay.
So let's see, keep going down. So what is the first date that we're going to start getting a paycheck with the school year getting pushed back?
So as I understand it, I don't know the specific date. It'll be it will be in September. It'll be that first check in September, first and second check in September, and I think it might be a week short. They actually just wrote that last night, so that's another one I would definitely bring back.
Okay. How will food service workers, managers, assistants, etc., work and get paid during the distant learning phase?
So one of the things that we decided on Wednesday, all schools will be feeding sites once we go into the virtual feed. And again, the USDA has approved it, and then that would be a perfect transition if we go into phase 2 and those small groups start coming in. Those men and women will be there just to continue that service.
So I'm gonna ask you a question I don't want you to answer. So do you have any thoughts on how, since the Republican convention in Jacksonville is being canceled, that's going to impact how we relate to making this happen? So I'm going to move on to the next question. I just want to throw that out there. Let me see. So I'm going to reform this question. So it seems like there are a lot of cleaning responsibilities that are also part of this. It's going to be, and it's going to need to be an enhanced cleaning services. We're already short given at the moment. How are we going to deal with this increased need to keep clean or supplement cleaning?
Hey, do me a favor. You actually were breaking up a little bit. Could you repeat the question?
Okay, sure. So understanding that there's going to be an increased need for cleaning, and we already don't have enough custodians to kind of do the level of cleaning that we need. How are we going to deal with this enhanced need for cleaning?
Yeah, so I think in the beginning, I think there's some opportunities to create new working opportunities for your membership. I think in the long term, when everybody's back in their regular jobs, then we will have to either hire more custodians if that's even possible with the job market, or we have supplemental cleaning services to fill in where we have gaps.
So I'm going to move on to questions about safety concerns. Okay. So PPE, do we have enough PPE for all non-instructional staff for the different roles? That's part one of the question.
We have enough masks and plastic face shields for all employees for the entire year to replace them regularly. We even just purchased 5 washable masks for every kid in the district. So
that was the next question.
We have enough masks. We're actually looking at the plastic face shields. We're actually going to probably end up buying a lot more of them, because I think it seems like the most safe is when you can wear both. And so, but obviously your custodians, bus drivers, others in that unit, we have N95s for you guys. So we have respirator type masks for that, for most of your membership.
Okay, great. So here's a question from a bus driver. What happens if we go back to school and one student on the bus tests positive, considering there's a lag time?
Yeah. How
do we contact trace, and what's going to be the protocols for everyone else, including the bus driver that was on that bus?
Right. So of all the work we did this summer, one of the things kind of interesting, transportation has been working on a registration system, finally, where kids have to register to get on the bus. And we actually, thanks to the food service team, they're looking to tie it to an ID card. So the kids will scan onto the bus, use that same ID at the school for cafeteria services, et cetera, et cetera. So if we can get that right, And then, and also I would argue in the beginning, your numbers are going to be smaller kids riding. So we will be able to then, you know, we're going to set protocols on the back end at the school. Again, some people want us, we're not a small district where each bus driver can jump off the bus at every stop and check it. I just don't see that as being feasible. Now we might have to do it, we'll see. But I think there will be a series of protocols once that kid is identified, and and let's all hope this happens. Right now, it wouldn't even matter. The delay on the testing is so long, you know. So if the country can get this testing under control and get it done in 24 hours, we have a much greater opportunity to shut it down. So we will be working on that. Actually, that's one of the conversations I'm gonna have with the state. The county next week about contact tracing and testing and seeing what we can do for our employees and kids.
Right. So
And
here's
also,
another.
just for information, both my work and Wanda Paul are on, and they should be able to unmute themselves also.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, Mike and Wanda, have I said anything wrong yet?
Well, first of all, bus drivers transporting students can't wear face shields.
Okay.
So that's number one. Number two, we have ordered additional electrostatic sprayers, and that's what we were using to disinfect the buses. And number three, what you said, Dr. Fennoy, in regards to how do we deal with the cleaning aspects of it, it's going to take a village to get through this. So we are working on providing additional training to custodians, and then we're trying to ramp up training for our bus drivers and our food service workers. So as I said previously, it's going to take a village.
Absolutely. Mike, any clarifications, Mike?
Hey, Mike, you're muted.
Few of them. On the health insurance, you know, we're self-insured. Our plan is to keep everyone, all our full-time employees, stay on the health insurance plan at least through December. And then also, you know, the school board approved a new calendar last night. So we've pushed the start of the school year later. That is going to result in a pay gap, right? So normally if we had started on August 10th, a lot of our employees, those on a 180-day contract, 182, 187, 188, that's your bus drivers, bus attendants, food service workers, police aides. They would have got their first check on August 21st. That's now being pushed back 2 weeks until September 4th.
Okay.
So September 4th will be that date that bus drivers and other folks, they see that first check for the new school year. You know, you don't actually lose pay. It's just the cash flow. It's the timing of it. You know, if we get to work through the full school year, everyone will still be paid their full salary for the year. So I saw that in there for the questions. There was a question, should we file for unemployment? No, at this point, you're all still employed. There was a question about lunchroom aides, and
You're getting ahead.
Oh, okay, sorry then. I'm just going through my list. You give me the mic, I start talking. All right.
Absolutely.
Okay. So there's a question about SC students and about either students that have compromised immune systems or special needs that require additional attention. What extra precautions will be taken to help service the children and also keep the drivers or the bus attendants safe?
Yeah, I think I think I kind of answered this a little earlier. I think the same, especially when it comes to special needs students, there's going to have to be another series of protocols and probably conversations with those families prior to us actually picking them up. You know, especially in the early phases, to see what that will look like. But I know Kevin McCormick and the special ed team, and obviously Wanda's team will be working closely on this. But we'll get that information to you.
Okay. So will school counselors who are constantly exposed to the public, especially students, parents, and incoming students who wish to register, usually without appointments, have the option to work remotely, similar to classified teachers?
School counselors?
Mhm.
Oh, this is a new question on me. I thought they were in the T bargaining unit.
Well, this is one of the questions we got, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think I'm almost, Mike, they are in the T bargaining unit, aren't they? Guidance counselors?
Yes, guidance counselors are part of the teachers bargaining unit.
Yeah, so they'll follow the same rules as the teachers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me see. So so here's one question for non-instructional employees who are within that endangered window. They're either in the late 60s or they have a history of immune issues or whatever. How this is going to deal with those employees? Are they going to offer any other accommodations? Are they going to offer people the ability to retire early, et cetera?
Yeah, I can't speak to retire early, but we have the HR department has a process. Our regular process is for people to submit a request for that type of leave or accommodations. So all of that is still up and running.
Yep. Okay. Those are all the major questions that we had. So, Mike, you were speaking to some stuff earlier that seemed really salient and important that you were very impassioned about. Do you want to answer those questions? Answer those questions now?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for the opportunity.
Sure.
So we're going through the process now of submitting a plan to the governor, and that plan's important. His approval is important. If the governor approves our plan, he's basically said he's going to protect our funding through December. So that's what we're working under, that kind of assumption, right? We'll make sure our plan gets approved, and that'll keep the money coming in through December. And we're trying to safeguard all of our full-time employees, just like we did in March when we shut down. Now, we did have to, some of our part-time people, like substitutes or the after-school counselors that are truly like part-time hourly people, we couldn't keep paying them. But if you're in a full-time job, you've got benefits, we've been able to date to keep everybody on the payroll. And that's what we're working towards, to try to keep that going at least till December, because we've kind of got hopefully we have our funding guaranteed till December. So we've got to, we're going to have to work together. People may have to help out in areas outside their normal job so that we can kind of help build our case to justify, continuing to pay everyone. So that's the kind of stuff we have to work out. Just some of those questions I was rattling off. I know health insurance has been a concern for a lot of people. Our board has spoken up about that, and they said, look, even if there were to be a furlough, we'd like to somehow keep people's health insurance going. So right now, as Dr.
Mike,
Fennoy
I think you froze.
Oh, shoot! I can see you guys.
No, that was him.
Okay.
Keep talking.
Okay. Anyway, like Dr. Fennoy said, we're not talking about furloughs at this point. We're trying to just keep everyone employed and find work for everyone to do. And of course, the health insurance I mentioned earlier, health insurance, we're solid through December. I did want to mention the pay cap, and I think you guys are aware of that. We had the calendar committee met on Monday before we went to the board, and the SEIU was represented, and I really kind of appreciate you all working with us. The push to school year 3 weeks ahead, it was really unavoidable not to have a pay gap for those groups I mentioned. We did work, we were able to limit to one pay gap and not two. So that was a positive story, but I know any pay gap's tough because we're all trying to manage our money. So I just wanted to share that date again. So if you're looking for that first check for this school year, it's going to occur on September 4th. There was a question in there about part-time lunchroom aides. I believe someone mentioned their husband worked in that capacity. Those folks have not been able to keep working. And the food service budget took a big hit. When we're not serving meals like we normally do, we don't get the same revenue from the federal government, and even for the kids that are just paying for their lunches. So food service has got to really tighten their belt, and we're not able to, you won't see the part-time staff and you probably won't see temp employees, because our priority is keeping the full-time people employed. And I know Ms. Paul's on the call, and I hope I haven't said anything that contradicts her thoughts or her understanding. That was my understanding. So
That's correct, Mike.
yep. So that's really it. I mean, we are buying a lot of PPE and masks, you know, trying to round up everything we can to be prepared for when we do go back to in-person instruction. And I think that's pretty much concludes my comments, Mr. Mayfield. I'd be happy if there's any specific questions that I glossed over.
Thanks for the save, Mike and Wanda. Appreciate the backup.
All right. So that's the end of our questions. We're kind of at the end of our town hall. We're going to have a couple of more of these. We're trying to set up the next one as we get into the school year. And we're still taking questions. We're going to continue to send them to the district like we've been doing, and we'll get answers accordingly and get them back out to our membership. But I want to thank Dr. Fennoy, Wanda, and Mike for spending some time with us tonight and answering these questions.
Thanks, guys. Everybody be safe. And again, appreciate you, Mike and Wanda, and Alfonso. Call me anytime and let's get everything scheduled and let's keep communicating.
Okay, thank you. Everyone have a good night.
Thank you.